Hi everyone, welcome to Season 4, Episode 1 of the Dari Hammer Podcast. I hope that you all had a happy holidays and a happy new year. And starting off the new year on the right foot and following through with your New Year's resolutions. As for me, I'm trying for sure to follow through with my New Year's resolutions, which mainly are being more grateful, having more appreciation for everything that the universe has to offer, as well as simply spending more time with my family and just trying to enjoy things more without sweating the small stuff. So that's it for me. But enough about me. I would love to share a story of an amazing human being with you. Now, before I do that, I want you to ask yourself, are you happy with your current profession or whatever that is that you're doing on a daily basis? Or did you wish that you could do something totally different, but simply don't have the courage or have people around you to talk you out of it, maybe based on fear, or maybe they don't understand? Now, before you take someone else's advice, I want to remind you that people give you advice based on their personal perspective, based on their personal experience. So, although it's understandable that people are easily influenced by others around them, mainly people that they trust and close friends, family, it's important to follow through and listen to your own heart, what you're passionate about, or otherwise you're stuck with your current situation, which may or may not be something you actually want. I know I'm getting very deep here and very philosophical, but it's a question worthwhile asking. Many times when I talk to my students or young family friends or residents or fellows who ask me the question, Doc, what do you think I should be doing? Should I take this credit or that credit? Should I use this major or that major? Should I choose this specialty or that specialty? What it tells me is, first of all, I've been there myself, but what that tells me is that they simply just are confused. They lack perspective. They look at life as binary things, this or that. They focus too much on little things, and it's understandable. We've all been there. You're looking at your graduation year. It's almost like everything is a race, keeping up with the Joneses, with your neighbor, with your colleagues, with your friends, with your peers. It gets very frustrating, and a lot of us are led by fear as opposed to by love, by passion. And it's very hard to listen to your heart if you're so focused on little things. So this podcast hopefully inspires all of you to maybe take a hard look in a mirror and ask yourself the question, do I love what I'm doing? Is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? You get one life, you don't get two lives. So you better make the best out of this one. Well, my podcast today did this very thing. After studying medicine and practicing medicine for many years as an emergency physician at Georgetown University, he decided he wants to impact the world more on a global scale as opposed to just his community around his town where he serves his patients on a smaller scale. Lucky for him, he had a biophysics degree also that he utilized and got him curious enough to think outside the box and ask himself one day, what happens to all this waste that we're putting out all day? And how could we get renewable energy in a clean way without emissions? What started with a simple question and curiosity now led to currently building the world's biggest green hydrogen production facility using NASA-derived technology that converts waste and biomass into energy without any toxic emissions at a low cost. So if you're thinking that he must have had a lot of luck or the stars must have aligned for him, or he's a special human being. Well, yes, he is a special person. The stars did align. But unless he had made a move and a decision, none of this would have happened. What makes the story even more intriguing and inspiring to me personally is the fact that he arrived into this country from Vietnam as an immigrant at age 14. When many others use their disadvantage and use adversity as an excuse to underachieve, Robert Doe did exactly the opposite. To me, it seems like he used it as a chip on his shoulder to not look back, to look forward, and to excel in what he is good at, and take every opportunity to make the best out of it, and now changing the world. So please listen in, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with Dr. Robert Doe. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Daria Hammer podcast today. I have a special guest and colleague, entrepreneur, businessman, visionary. Basically, he checks all the boxes of how I imagine a person that has not only the ability, but also the passion to change the world. But without further ado, Dr. Robert Doe, welcome to the Daria Hammer podcast. Thank you so much for coming in on a Sunday afternoon. You're a busy man, and I don't take this for granted. And I will hopefully get our audience a lot of value by sharing your story, but also sharing what you're doing currently in changing the world and making this a better place for our children, grandchildren, and the future of human beings and our planet in the future. Robert, tell us a little bit about what you're doing currently, what you're working on. I know you are the CEO and founder of SGH2 hydrogen company that basically produces clean and green hydrogen energy, and it's fascinating. I read about what you're up to, what your company does. It's just fascinating, and it baffles my mind why we haven't been doing this sooner. So someone has to start this. So tell the audience a little bit about what you're currently working on.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Hammer. You have been also a figure that I've been following, and you're very your knowledge and you passing through, in the different fields from dentistry to medicine is very impressive.
Thank you.
And certainly from just quickly, our company, SGH2 Energy, basically currently we are developing and building plants around the world, including California and in Europe, to produce hydrogen. And the hydrogen that we will be producing in California will be transported to hydrogen fueling stations in order to fuel hydrogen car. And hydrogen stations are now being built throughout California and the rest of the world, and hopefully around the country as well. So that's what we do. We use our own technology that I was part of developing for almost 20 years, where we're using plasma heat in order to convert biomass, biogenic waste material, and extract the hydrogen molecule. And hydrogen then will be transported in a gaseous state at high pressure over to hydrogen fueling stations in California. Mm-hmm. And hydrogen, in this case, essentially replaces gasoline, it replaces diesel, and it replaces battery as well. So you basically are using hydrogen as an energy storage or as an energy molecule. But as you know, hydrogen is the lightest element in the world. It is H2, so therefore it has no carbon attached to it. So when you burn it or you use it to make energy, you don't create CO2, which is a global warming gas that's causing all the climate issue we have today. So that's what we do. We convert biomass. In the case of the city of Lancaster, we have a project where we take waste paper, recycle paper that you throw out, whether it's printed material or newspaper, or you throw out cardboard, cotton material that are not clean enough to recycle. What do? They throw it in the landfill, where it just decomposes over time into methane. In our case, we would take that material and we use plasma heat in order to depolymerize all the molecule and then extract the hydrogen. So in short, that's...
So basically, you're turning our day-to-day trash into energy, in short.
Well,
very
yes,
simply put.
Simply put, the waste to energy, actually, people think of waste to energy. You take waste and you burn it, and you get some heat. And that's what waste to energy has been. And it's a very inefficient way because you're just heating up the sensitive heat. So you make some steam from it, and you run a steam turbine. So the recovery of that is about 15-20% efficiency in recovering the energy from waste. So unfortunately, that's how waste has been done around the world. Sophisticated country, developed country. But the rest of the world, and the majority in the US, we're just dumping it. But what we do is different. We don't just burn it. We actually heat it up and extract, break down the molecule, and bring out hydrogen. So it's more thermochemical process rather than a combustion process. And therefore, by not burning it, you're not creating, more pollution by creating, dioxins and furans and all the combustion particles that comes with burning waste, which is a horribly polluting way. But it's still being done, unfortunately, because people just don't realize that there are better ways to handle the material that we are handling, which is billion tons of waste.
Now, just for the audience, hydrogen energy is nothing new. It's been a type of energy that we've been working on for decades. I remember, I grew up in Germany, as you know, and, in the 80s and 90s, in Germany, hydrogen production was really at the forefront, and it was always a topic. I remember it. But it never ever solidified itself as a usable energy just because of lack of efficiency of producing it. So how is what you're doing different compared to the traditional hydrogen production, which is through basically using other energy to turn like a water molecule into hydrogen? How is that different? And just so for the audience to have some context as to, or be able to compare to what they may have heard in the past or know about it.
Well, so understanding hydrogen is important. I mean, right, hydrogen is not new. In fact, the first person that mentioned energy using hydrogen is Jules Verne. Jules Verne wrote the 1,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And he wrote one day, energy would come out water using in the form of hydrogen. So, and this is 1800s, right? So it's not new. However, when you were talking about industrially, the world uses hydrogen today, and it uses a lot of hydrogen. And in fact, the US uses about 10 million tons of a year, and the whole world uses about 70 million tons of a year of hydrogen.
And where do they mostly use that?
They use it in refineries. Use it in the refineries in order to make, to crack crude oil, right? So, crude oil is pure carbon. So, but you have gasoline and you have diesel and you have kerosene. All of those are hydrocarbon, which means you have to put hydrogen in there to break up carbon. They call hydrocracking. And you make a C hydrocarbon chain of 12 to 15 chain hydrocarbon. You get kerosene, the shorter one, about 10 to 12, it's diesel, and then gasoline, and then naphtha. So all of these are refinery products that we use every day, and we need hydrogen to do it. Same with fertilizers. There's a second biggest source. Fertilizers is made from ammonia, right? And ammonia to urea. And ammonia is NH3. So you need nitrogen and you need hydrogen in order to make ammonia to use for fertilizers, which is, of course, the agriculture business. So oil and refinery and agriculture with ammonia are the two biggest use of hydrogen. And it's being used all over the world. The question is, how do they make that hydrogen?
Exactly. What's currently the
Yeah. And currently, that's how hydrogen has been made, is from natural gas or from coal. So taking fossil fuel, breaking natural gas, which is methane, and taking that gas up, and people say how clean it is. Well, it's not clean because it's still methane. It's still coming from fossil.
Yeah.
And they break that CH4 into hydrogen, and then they releases the carbon in the form of CO2. So that process that's currently in hydrogen is incredibly carbon intensive and polluting because of all the CO2 that's putting in to the air. And that's happening all over the world. A country like China and India, who do not have a lot of natural gas, then they take coal and petcoke, even dirtier fossil fuel, to break it up and convert it and get hydrogen out of it. So that's referred to as brown or black hydrogen. And in the US, we use natural gas. It's called gray hydrogen. Both of those are carbon intensive. They are very climate impact is very heavy. And, the amount of CO2 that's coming from the hydrogen business alone is equal to the CO2 impact of both the UK and Indonesia together. Two countries is what hydrogen sector today is producing in terms of CO2.
So isn't that kind of counterproductive if we consider, and we're going to talk about climate change, and we're going to talk about emissions and the effect on our environment later in this conversation, but isn't that a little counterproductive? Here you're trying to produce what's called green energy, which we now know is not really green, but you're going to tell us how you're doing it. How you're making it green, which you told us a little bit, but isn't that a little counterproductive? And how is it that all of this is not moving fast enough, and you're pretty much one of the very few people that, or the only one that is doing it this way? And what, you woke up one morning? I mean, you have a degree in biophysics and medicine. You practice medicine, ER medicine, as a matter of fact, at Georgetown. So what happened? One morning you woke up and you said, I'm tired of treating sick people. I want to treat our sick planet. Or how did that go? Tell us a little bit about how you got to this before we get back into the important
we
stuff.
call hydrogen. Absolutely. So, well, interestingly, you're right. I did graduate from Georgetown in both the biophysics as well as medicine, and actually was under I got a scholarship from U.S. Navy and became a U.S. Navy officer and retired as a lieutenant commander, and then went into primary care practice. And I was running a large medical clinic in the Bethesda Chevy Chase area. One of the big issues that I see is medical waste. And I was like, we're paying so much, and I'm sure you're doing that now with the medical waste that's coming out. And I said, what happened to medical waste? You hear about people finding syringes at the ocean because things are dumped improperly. And I was like, is there a better way of doing this? And then I met with a scientist from the U.S. space program, Dr. Bud Camacho. He basically helped develop the plasma heating system for U.S. NASA. And what is plasma heating system? It's a process to generate the maximum heat. What they were looking for is to recreate the re-entry heat for spaceships, right? So when you send spaceships up uh, into orbit. The challenge is if you want to put astronauts, to protect the astronaut to the re-entry heat, and you see the capsule coming in and it's like burning right through the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
That temperature is like 20,000 degrees C. So the challenge is, yes, we can build heat shield material to protect the capsule and the astronaut, but how do you test that heat shield in the 1960s? How do you generate 20,000 degrees centigrade to re-simulate that heat? And the NASA, as well as even the Russians and all the countries that has space program, they worked on a plasma heating system, which uses plasma, which is an ionized gas, in order to transfer electrical heat. And they were able to use a plasma heat to generate up to 15 to 20,000 degrees C, which is successfully tested the heat shield material that allow us to send humans to space. So the success really of human in space is a success of development of plasma heat. And you remember the tragic incident where the Discovery blew up, and that's because one of the heat shield material fell off and it came in. So just as soon as the heat shield came off, one piece of the whole thing would blew up. That's how important it is, with the development of the plasma heat to really treat and develop the heat shield material. So Dr. Camacho, who was one of we call the grandfather of plasma heating, he's a plasma physicist from Stanford, and he met with me and he said to me, Robert, we use this plasma heat to essentially vaporize all this medical waste. And he and I then founded what we considered, is the precursor of my company today. And that company is called Global Plasma System. And what we do, yeah, go ahead.
So how long ago was this? Like that moment where you
it was over 20 years ago, 20 plus years.
So when you met 20 years ago, everything from what I'm gathering is started with you asking a question, and which is what I call self-awareness or awareness of what's happening, not just like going, through the world with assuming that everything will be all right, but asking critical questions like you put something in the trash, what actually happens to this trash? Like, where does this come from and where is this going to go and where is all of this is going to end? So everything came out of curiosity and out of the question. And is that correct? Is that how everything started?
Yeah, it's how everything started. And I was looking at what is the better way to handle it. And
so from that point on until once you met Dr. Camacho to the point where you actually had a company, a functional company with the mission that you're currently on, how long did it take from that moment where you had that conversation to the start of your company? What was the timeline of that?
But the startup of the first company is probably within a year, right? I mean, we agreed to form a company with just the two founders thinking about it. And then I was then taking my own personal money to put into all the tests and laboratory and checking how the technology would work. And from there, start thinking, okay, we have something here that could treat waste effectively, and we were thinking maybe we should use this high heat to treat any hazardous waste, not only medical waste, but you have asbestos, you have all this industrial hazardous material. But we realize is that when you treat material with plasma, you use an extremely high amount of heat, and that is very costly, right? And it's a lot more costly to this waste company, then they kind of dumping it. So why would they choose a better technology? Nobody's going to pay for you being environmentally proper. There's no, payment for that, right? So we have to tweak the technology, because when we start doing this vaporizing and with the plasma heat, we generate an incredible amount of gas. And in that gas, 20 years ago, we saw that there's a lot of hydrogen in that gas.
Now,
so I said, well,
go ahead.
Yeah, so can we take that gas, using it as an energy source to cover the costs of generating the plasma heat? So therefore, we reduce the cost of using this treatment. But like every research that we do in medicine as well, when you go with one goal to do a certain research, by tweaking it, you discover by doing it this way and that way, you suddenly generate, we say, we can make a really high amount of hydrogen here. And this gas now is very valuable. So can we go ahead and turn our technology, rather from waste treatment, into producing a high hydrogen-rich gas, which can be used to replace as a heat source.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how, and since it's not coming from fossil fuels, not coming from natural gas or from coal, it's a better source of hydrogen. And that's how it all started.
Now, I just don't want this to be, I want to unpack what happened there a little bit more, because I think it's important for people that, especially young entrepreneurs that have great ideas, and a lot of these, the ideas that we have and then we end up implementing that change the trajectory of the future of humanity, from, I don't know, when Tesla over 150 years ago or 120 years ago invented electromagnetic and electricity to Steve Jobs utilizing technology to make our lives so much easier and so much more efficient. All of these things happened with an idea. But what you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, everything started with an idea, and then you're a physician practicing, having an idea to the point that now you have to execute upon that idea to start a company, put your own money in. I mean, we know that 98% of companies that start up, they go bankrupt. What gave you the courage and motivation? Of course, it takes a smart person, it takes a great team, and obviously you teamed with an amazingly talented scientist, which is paradigm to me. But what gave you the courage to let go a well-paying profession that you've invested in many years of education to starting up the company, putting your own money in? I want to unpack that a little bit, because I think there's so much value for the audience to learn from how you did it, so maybe that they can apply some of the steps that you took and some of the thought processes that went through your head in implementing that, without being delusional, but rather being calculated.
Yeah, so obviously it was a transition time. So, it was a transition time, clearly. And Camacho was an older German at the time of me. And he couldn't run the company. He would need me to run it. And, for me, then we realized that we need to get real money. I mean, my money in supporting companies not enough. Let's start looking at real, Wall Street money, venture capital money.
Now, you have an MBA degree from Harvard. At which point did you earn that degree? Was it prior to all of this, during, or after?
Well, I was doing executive program, MBA program. I never completed the MBA. I basically was an executive MBA taking classes at Harvard.
At which point was that? Was it during that period of time? Because everybody knows in medical school, we don't learn anything about business. We're probably the worst business people. And here you
Yep.
are, being an entrepreneur, starting up a company and going on fundraising spree. Like, where did you obtain that knowledge or that courage?
Well, I mean, I think that the knowledge you're thrown into it, and I think that the understanding of what we were trying to do was interesting to a lot of energy company because, again, when you're looking at the energy market at the time, price of energy was high. There's a lot of challenges in the energy industry. So they think of us as someone who could come up with a new source of energy, particularly when you start having, the first Kyoto Protocol that came out that talks about CO2 and climate change. It was very early on, that nobody really talked about it, but energy companies were conscious of it. And I realized that when we were talking about, there was a lot of interest. So the question for me was, okay, we're going to put real money into your company for you to develop this technology. But we can no longer let you play doctor. We need you as a full-time CEO.
I know how that goes from watching Shark Tank.
So you need to be completely committed to this. And so it was a decision for me to, okay, if I get some real money in to run this company and develop this business, then I'll sell my practice and get out of medicine right away. So it was a big decision, as you can understand. Of course, my mother was very upset. Her son, the doctor, is no longer going to work as a doctor. All my patients are very upset. Friends and families who are always relying on you as a doctor is like, what are you doing?
So how much, I'm really curious because a lot of us make decisions based on what others think or the opinion of others. How much did that affect you, if any? I just want to know, because I think it tells people a lot about not only what it takes to make a change, but also about your personality, what traits are required. And these are basic traits that they're individual to you based on your genetics and all of that. But how much of the outside noise and opinion affected you? I mean, obviously the result is nothing, but during that time, did you even listen to that, or was it just noise that you just shut off?
I never thought about that, Daria, but actually, I made my mind based on what I see is the potential of what this could be. And I was excited about it. I was excited about the impact of it. I feel that there is something more to it than a personal legacy where, you and I have had chances of going to work every day, seeing patients, and we've reached it. We've reached a stage where we got loving patients, we do it every day. But I didn't feel the excitement. I guess that's the pretty open statement about that. There wasn't as much excitement to what I was doing and versus what I could be doing.
Well, it's a huge comparison. I mean, you feel that you're onto something, and that's something you see, you have that vision. You just have to explain it to others so they understand, but the impact of it to our, not just today, but to our planet for generations to come.
Yeah,
and there is nothing bigger than that. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's exciting because I don't see it, and the impact is not for my relatively small 10, 15,000 patients, but the impact that I do is global. There were interests at the time already. Can I do this in Asia? Can I do it in Europe? Can I do it in the US? Can I do it in South America? There was so much interest in this form of energy that the impact is massive compared to my little world, my patients. and
Yeah,
and that's
you could have easily rode into the sunset and having everything predictable, everything is set, you had paid your dues, and now you just ride into the sunset. And yet, not only you make a career change, it's just you decide you're going to change the world. And to me, this is one of the most inspiring stories I've ever heard, whether it is in person like now or watched from some fictitious movie or read a book. I'm just excited just to listening to your story. I can't imagine what must have gone through your veins starting all of this, and I'm really beyond grateful for people like you. Not to um, you know exaggerate, but I don't think you can exaggerate this. That's why I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I think it's super inspiring, even for myself, not to mention my audience. So now you are a full-fledged CEO, startup, raising funds, put medicine aside, people telling you in both ears, what are you doing? Your mom is disappointed, and yet you tune all of that out, and you're like, and when I asked you the question, you're like, I never thought about it. This is amazing. That goes to show, to make a change, you have to have so much conviction, you have to have so much passion, and you can't at no point doubt yourself. And when you are at that level, which you were at that point, and you are today still, nothing is impossible. So now share with us what happened. So you let all of that go. One day you went and said, "Okay, I'm done with medicine. Mom, I'm sorry I'm disappointing you, but I'm going to change the world." And what did you have to go through to raise the funds and get to the point you are today?
well,
What did it take?
since then we raised almost $50 million, including my money and money from venture capitals, and we brought in some of the largest energy companies through different series of fundraising. We had fundraised from the largest energy company in Canada, like Hydro-Québec, Capec, and then we had the largest company from Ontario, the largest energy company in Michigan, Detroit Edison. We brought in money from the largest Italian energy company, Enel Capital, and one of the largest one in Spain, Acciona. So all of these are large funds, company, all energy business. But they have a fund, they call their venture fund, where they want to invest into new technology. And they got excited about what we are doing. So, we were funded to develop the business plan, to develop the technology, to test out the technology, to pilot it, and take it all the way demonstration that indeed now the process refined in order to actually extract hydrogen using the plasma heat and all the operation parameters. And it took us all the way until 2005 when I wrote the first patent to produce hydrogen using this process after we completed the demo testing phase, knowing exactly whether we put in our process paper or waste or plastics or
So you guys can turn plastic into hydrogen?
Absolutely. Plastic has tons of hydrogen.
That's amazing. Because everything is, as far as I'm concerned, everything is made out of plastic today. Even cars are made out of plastic.
Yeah, and it's basically one of the most polluting wastes in the world, right? I mean, our oceans
water
are full
bottles,
of plastic.
yeah.
And you put it into the landfill, it doesn't biodegrade. So it sits there for thousands of years. So it's just a horrible product. But unfortunately, plastic is made from petrochemical, right? They use ethane to make ethylene, make polyethylene. So you got PET, you got polypropylene, you got PVCs, you got all of these chemicals. And guess where they come from? Oil. So when you go to the hydrocracking process of the refinery, the light chain, the 0 to 5 carbon chain, or the naphtha product, typically goes to use in producing plastics. And oil companies are now making so much money from plastics that they don't really care if the oil goes down, because they still make a lot of plastics, and plastics is their driver for their revenues.
So let me ask you a question. Are the oil companies your friends or your foes?
It's a very challenging question, because we're working with them, because they say, look, we are changing, we are going into renewable, we're going into clean hydrogen.
Well, you're making them look good, right? You're turning their waste into energy. You're making them look good.
We give them clean hydrogen. They look good. They can, really not only greenwashing, but here it's not. It's actually working to bring hydrogen to the market, at least some of them. On the other hand, it's still, 1-2% of their business, right? They still 95% of business is still oil and gas. So oil companies are making plastics. The problem with us taking plastics is that it still comes from oil. So the only way we could say that the hydrogen is clean is that we capture the carbon, the CO2. So we can turn the plastic into hydrogen and CO2, and then we capture that CO2, what we call carbon capture and sequestration, and we take that CO2 and we bury it. If we can bury that CO2 and keep it down there, then we literally have a source of hydrogen that is clean because it has no CO2, and that has been referred to as blue hydrogen. Blue hydrogen is when you take hydrogen from petrochemical product, but the CO2 is being captured and sequestered. So there's all these rainbow of color for hydrogen because of that.
So basically, with your technology, doesn't it make hydrogen production from sources like wind or water and all those traditional ways, do you think it's going to make them obsolete at some point? Because people say like windmills and all of those are green, but look, you're putting those ugly things in the environment, right? You need power to generate those, so it's not really green. I mean, it's probably green compared to oil, or coal, but it's really not green. So with your technology, aren't they going to be obsolete at some point, or is it more like a synergistic thing?
Well, actually, we like hydrogen coming from water, because as you think about it, we don't want to use hydrogen coming from petrochemical product, right?
Correct.
We want to use fossil fuel. We really want to start using fossil fuel, which is the number one cause of climate change. I mean, people don't realize that's it. I mean, if we can stop fossil fuel burning. And I'll give you a concept that's very simple. Hopefully your audience would understand this easily, because Tom Friedman, described this in one of his book, which I love. And what is when you're talking about carbon and energy, and if you take energy from the ground, which is all the energy we use, energy from the ground is coal. Originally, we started with coal, and then we went to oil, and then we get to gas. But all of these are carbon that we take from the ground, we bring it up above the ground, and we burn it. And therefore, you release all that carbon into the air as CO2 or CH4, and that creates, of course, the global warming coverage over the Earth's atmosphere. So that carbon from under the ground is bad, right? We call it energy from hell because it's under the ground. Now you want energy above ground, which would be energy from heaven, because that's solar, that's wind, and that's biomass things that are up here above ground. And so if we use any of the energy above ground, we are not releasing that energy from hell up into the atmosphere.
Mhm.
So you can see that separation if people can understand why anything that you dig up and then burn, you will release that CO2. So if we can take wind and we break water, we get hydrogen that's clean, right?
Correct.
And hydrogen only exists in nature in the form of either H2O, which is water, or HCO, which is hydrocarbon. You know, like trees, wood, you know, agriculture products. All of these are hydrogen in nature. So we want to capture that hydrogen. And so there's really only two methods. One is to take it from water, but you have to break the hydrogen bond from water, which is an incredibly tight bond, right?
Yeah, it's hard.
That bond is like a magnet. So you have to put a lot of energy into it to break it. And the number is between 55 to 60 kilowatt to break 1 kilo of hydrogen out of water. So it's energy intensive, but then that energy has to come from a clean, renewable source above ground. So it has to be either solar, or it could be wind, or, you know, hydropower is also clean, like a dam, or you could use, now there are proposals to use nuclear power because it doesn't generate CO2. But those are ways to extract hydrogen from water. In our case, we're extracting it from HCO bond, right? HCO rather than H2O. The HCO bond for us, fortunately, is very loose. So it takes us less energy to break that bond. In fact, it takes us about 8 kilowatt hours to get 1 kilo from hydrocarbon versus 60 kilowatt hour from water.
So it's way more efficient.
So it's more efficient and cheaper to produce. But then you're looking at the market of hydrogen all over the world, and area that has a lot of wind, like the Catalonia, Patagonia in Argentina and Chile, or has a lot of solar, like a Sahara Desert, you know, or Saudi Arabia. They can make a massive solar energy, and they can make a lot of hydrogen. So Saudi Arabia planned to be one of the biggest producers of hydrogen because they got all this sun.
Sure.
Problem for them is they don't have water. So, but if they can have a lot of sun and a lot of water, they can be a big producer of hydrogen, and they become a geographically dependent. Right? So you go to Japan, you go to Korea, where it's dense. There's no solar, there's no wind. I mean, even their ocean are so deep, they can't even create wind farms offshore. So they have no way of making electrolysis of water to make hydrogen. But they do have a lot of waste, right? So it's more fitting for us to work in country like that. And so you see that the market's shifting into country that are great in renewable power. They should be able to make a lot of hydrogen from the water. Country that does not have that resource should looking at, you know, hydrogen come from biomass and waste. So, you know, we were talking like with Malaysia recently, and they are the biggest palm oil producer, like Indonesia, in the world, right? People don't like palm oil, but they are buying a massive amount of it. But with these millions of tons of palm oil, they're generating millions of tons of palm waste, which they don't know what to do. They try to burn it and they create a haze over Singapore. I mean, it's a mess. We can take all of that palm waste and turn it into hydrogen to make Malaysia a big producer because they have that.
Yeah, all you need to go is to countries that make the most waste, and there you go. Those are your engines. Those are going to be your engines. I mean, how hard is it to convince those countries to let you in on it? And do they move fast enough for you? Does the growth move fast enough for you, or are you facing a lot of doubters or for whatever, whether it is having a different agenda, a lot of people that just try to make it difficult for you?
Well, actually, they're all interested for us to come and build plants there. The challenge is when we make the hydrogen, where is the demand? So you can't have only one end of it, right? You have to produce, then you have to have the demand, and then you have to build up the ecosystem in between. The hydrogen need to be stored.
So where is the demand? Where is the demand currently in the world?
So that's a big question, right? That's a good question, because now we're hitting the key. In energy right now, you need an energy molecule. And what is the energy molecule we're trying to replace?
Yeah.
Well, we try to replace oil and gas. So the demand is in electric vehicles. So electric vehicles up to now are storing it in the battery. The problem is the battery is a terrible way of storing, it has very low energy density. In 1 kilo of battery, you can only store 0.1 kilowatt hour, 0.12 kilowatt in 1 kilo. So you think about your Tesla that has 90 kilowatt, the battery is 1,200 pounds or 600 kilos. It's the heaviest thing, and it takes forever to charge because it's not a good way to store electricity. Hydrogen has 34 kilowatt hour per kilo. Think about it, 34 kilowatt, 0.12. So Toyota Mirai, hydrogen car that Toyota is selling, running all around California at the moment. You put 5 kilo of hydrogen in there, and it has enough energy, right? 5 kilo times 34, you have 150 kilowatt hour.
Wow.
Battery there's no battery that's go 150 kilowatt until it's passive. And you can
why don't we have more hydrogen cars, if any? Where's the hold up?
And think about the car. Now think about trucks.
Or trucks for that matter.
And buses, which are going to go electric, which mean that they have to have even bigger battery.
Yeah. So why are we making the jump to more electricity if it's not efficient, as you say? And God knows how much more efficient we can be with future technology. And there we have this amazingly efficient hydrogen technology. What is currently the holdup in designing vehicles, trucks, buses, trains, whatever you want, utilizing hydrogen? Where is the holdup? It sounds to me like the demand is high. The demand should be like more than there.
It should be, right? But you're always fighting against the inert people who are, leasing diesel trucks right now. Are willing to go and buy a big hydrogen truck and spend that money and is the infrastructure? Is there enough hydrogen station build out? And then is there enough hydrogen producers that's producing green hydrogen, like water or waste? Because right now they're all coming from natural gas. So there's
scaling. So scaling is an issue right now.
Yeah. So it will happen probably, I would say, right now, since combustion and what we call ICE or internal combustion engines, car that uses gasoline and diesel, phase out. I mean, every car manufacturer are now saying by 2030, we cannot produce any more ICE engine. We would only produce electric. And then companies are committing the same thing. So during that period of time, you will phase out all your gas and oil cars, all be electric. And we would have to build out the infrastructure to deliver either electricity by charging or hydrogen. And the problem is electric. Think about the state of California. If you want to put all the vehicles into electric chargers, you would need 3 times the current power grid of California, which is already the largest power grid in the US. And is that
even doable?
Well, that's a lot of people don't think it's doable, number one. And the 3 times the power grid has to be green. So it has to be more solar and more wind.
Yeah.
And as aggressive as California is, we can only reach 33% of the grid is now solar and wind. Only 33%. The rest of them is still fossil.
So I
number
don't.
one,
So yeah.
you
So I
gotta
don't understand. Mhm.
you got to green the whole grid, make it 100% renewable. Otherwise, you're charging your car with only 30% green and 70% fossil fuel. So is that electric car on battery really green? Or is it only 33% green? And all you're doing is shifting the pollution over to the power plant.
So a question now, because every car manufacturer now is going electric. It's almost like some car manufacturers have completely stopped building new gasoline or designing new gasoline cars. Now,
Right.
This is obviously a trend that they have calculated because we're talking about huge companies, and they're not just going to invest into their future, not knowing or calculating the future. But from what it sounds like is that it's almost impossible to be able to charge all these batteries in the future. All these gasoline cars, eventually they're going to be electric. It's going to be not only hard to charge them all, but even to produce green electricity. So then have we really improved the current emissions situation? And I mean, there's so many smart people, scientists there that they should be advising, and these companies should be listening to. Is this just like a temporary thing, you think, or is it just more of a wishful thinking type of things, like kind of like a CEO thinks, well, as long as I don't have to worry about it in my career, that's the problem for the next person to deal with. So they're just dumping or kicking the can of worm down the road and having someone else pick it up. But they're thinking like, by that time, I'm not even there anymore, so I could care less. Like, what's going on? I mean, you talk to all of these people. You are part of. Yeah. You talk with the scientists, absolutely, politicians. I mean, every day you are on these summits, and what's going on behind closed doors? If you can.
Well, the technology, first of all, the technology there, right? But the policy has to follow. The government has to basically direct policy up. And the state of California and the state of New York, two of the biggest states, has already said that by 2035, you are not even allowed to sell a combustion engine. So now that you need these regulations in place, that as a car manufacturing company, up to now, we're putting this new regulation that you need to be 35 miles per hour. You have to go up to 50 miles an hour. I mean, gasoline in terms of per gallon. And now taking it all the way to the fact that you can't even use and sell combustion engine. Germany has already committed no combustion engine will be manufactured in 2030. So, and that means, and I see cars as a small fraction because, the battery is small, people can charge it at home. But the trucks, the long range trucks, it has to carry a lot of payload, or buses, they can't sit over, 5 hours to get charged. They need to be filled up quickly, and hydrogen you can fill up in 5 minutes. You don't need to charge it. So, and then you go to ships, and then you go to, ships which are using a huge amount of diesel, and then you go to planes. You have to electrify all of the transport, trains, ships, bus, and all the heavy duty, cannot use battery, cannot put a massive battery in a plane, cannot put. Right now, I had a conversation with the chairman of Maersk, and we had that discussion with Elon Musk. And Elon believes that battery will be the future. The chairman of we were on the same discussion, and the chairman of Maersk, which is the largest shipping company in the world, he said, Elon, if I'm going to put battery on my container ships, half of my ship will be carrying battery.
It will sink. Your ship will
It makes
sink.
it makes
Yeah.
no sense.
It is
And
heavy.
Elon position is no, our battery that's smaller and more efficient, you see. I mean, we know he's selling batteries, so he has to stick to it.
Of course.
And he is fighting hydrogen tooth and nail because he knows that hydrogen will replace battery in the majority of transportation. But the policy, Daria, has to be there. And fortunately for us, this 2 months ago, this year, the US passed the largest climate change legislation ever, $350 billion, more than any country in the world.
Wow.
To solve climate. And within that, he's going to allow the US will allow more hydrogen charging stations as well as more electric charging stations. And they're putting policy to support the development of clean hydrogen.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah, every kilo of hydrogen that we produce, the US government, if it's clean, and it depends on how much CO2 you reduce compared to using fossil fuel, the government will give you a production tax credit to the point that it's really irked the European Union because they said now in the US it will be cheaper to produce hydrogen, clean hydrogen, because of this policy, whereby, European hasn't passed this policy. So they're afraid that we're making a lot of hydrogen and we're shipping it over there to sell because
you better move fast.
Government support.
Yeah. Well.
So that's what, Emmanuel Macron was here 2 days ago, and one of the topics that he challenged Biden was that we are putting out protectionist policy that allow us to produce hydrogen faster and cheaper than they could. So you can see you got diplomatic issues. You can see how challenging these things are and how regulation has to be in place in order to support the infrastructure, the production, and add value to the cleaner form of hydrogen compared to dirty hydrogen.
So our current companies, of course, any company needs an intense incentive as such, as you mentioned.
That's right.
Do you think these companies only, like, say, car companies, Chrysler, Mercedes, BMW, or whoever that might be, Porsche, do you think they're only are they working first question is, are they currently working on hydrogen cars? I know they had been, I remember when I was in Germany, before they had hybrid cars, there were hydrogen cars, and they were actually.
That's right. BMW had the first one. Yeah.
What happened is they just couldn't. I don't know. I don't remember quite why it didn't take off. Maybe you can comment on it. Why didn't they continue? Why did it stop? And then currently the company is working on hydrogen cars, yes or no?
Yeah. So all the big ones are working on hydrogen car. BMW next year would have an X5, their standard SUV. X5 will be hydrogen car. Mercedes decided to launch hydrogen trucks. They believe that, big semis would be better to go hydrogen. Well, the little cars, they would keep the battery. Volkswagen chairman said that they will think that they are developing almost 3 to 4 models of hydrogen. Renault and Stellantis already launched, another 4 model of hydrogen in France. So yeah, a car company, of course, the Korean already have hydrogen cars and trucks. They're trying to export it to the US. The Hyundai Nexo is an SUV that's selling in California because California is the only place that has stations for it. And Toyota is doing the same. Toyota has hydrogen trucks, hydrogen buses, hydrogen cars.
How many miles can you drive a hydrogen car? Because obviously the limitation is currently stations where you can fill up your hydrogen. So then the question becomes that how far can you, once you fill up the tank or whatever you call it, a tank, or whenever you fill up your vehicle, how far can you drive with it?
Well, the Mirai, for example, are you put a full tank in there, you could get anywhere between 350 to 400 miles
Okay.
per tank of 5.5 kilo. And right now in California, it costs about $15 average per kilo. So you fill it up, kilo, you pay $75, and you got 400, almost 400 miles. So it's almost the same as you have a Mercedes. You use super unleaded, you pay $75, and you get 400 miles. So it's almost parity at this stage.
Do you see that becoming more efficient and cheaper in the future? Obviously, it has to do with the cost of production thereof, right? But do you see that becoming more efficient? Because I think for a lot of people to start even considering that, and I can go by why people consider buying an electric car versus gasoline car. The first question they ask is about how can they beat the gas price. So if you're giving me a technology that has the same price as gasoline, might not be incentivized because it's something new, you're not familiar with it, and we all know human nature doesn't like to change, and we just like to go with what's familiar. And you could tell how hard the transition has been and still currently is from gasoline to electric, even though the financial incentive is huge. I mean, I have an electric car. I have a Taycan, and before that I had an I-Pace, and I've not paid for gas in 4 or 5 years now, and but the incentive was number one, the gas costs, I don't have to worry about it. Plus, which I'm not quite sure if I'm really helping the environment, because now I'm thinking, what's going to happen to all these batteries? How are we getting rid of them? Once the car's not drivable, where are the batteries going, by the way?
Yeah, well, that's a big challenge because, recycling the material in the battery, particularly lithium, which is you got rare earth, you got cobalt, but lithium is obviously one of the biggest battle right now in resources for battery. And to give you a comparison, of course, in a hydrogen car, you also have a small battery because you have hydrogen, you have a small battery that stores the hydrogen, the electricity. But comparison, with the lithium in the Tesla, you can build 81 hydrogen car. So you use a lot less resource, because the battery is so much smaller, right? 81 times. But recycling those batteries is almost impossible today.
So what happens? What happens to them? What's going to happen to my car?
Well, everybody tried to claim that they can recycle and recover some of the metals, but as you know, grind up and mixed up in their technology to recycle them is pretty much non-existent today. So what happened?
Are people closing a blind eye? Are people closing a blind eye?
They are basically dumped and thrown away, just like all our phones and everything that has a battery that we use. We just throw it.
Do you think, with your knowledge, is it better or worse than the emissions from gasoline cars or diesel cars?
Oh, it doesn't impact. It is an environmental impact in terms of landfilling and throwing things away. But we throw out our refrigerators and washing machines.
But this just adds to it.
It adds to it. But it's the impact on electric versus combustion has more to do with atmosphere, and it has more to do with climate change, which is really our number one crisis, right? Our number one crisis is this massive amount of CO2 that we're building up and continuing to build up in the atmosphere, creating all these climate changes from drought to wildfires, all the way to, massive hurricanes and changes in the landscape. So acidifying the ocean. We're so much worse if we continue to burn oil or gas or coal. That is the number one problem. Nothing
Understood.
else close
This
to.
this this segues well into my next question, which is, in your opinion, you meet with a lot of scientists, that actually have studied this and have facts. And, the point of climate change has been point of debate for many decades, but it's mostly because it's been politicized. And it doesn't matter. Anyone you talk to has an opinion, but nobody really knows the facts or has read any science. And it's almost like we're talking about opinions, which is completely absurd, and mainly because it's been politicized. Now, you have and had the opportunity to meet with the world's greatest scientists based on the fact that you're in the energy business. What is your take on climate change? Is it real or is it a fad? And if so, where do you see our planet in 100 years from now?
Well, let's talk 20 years. Let's talk 30 years because
30 years.
I'll go to 2050. So based on scientific fact, and this is by IPCC, which is 197 top climate scientists around the world that work for the United Nations, and came out with this panel. And their panel is doing, writing up their calculations and what is the fact. And this is not at all politics. And it's sure that if we warm up the atmosphere by 2 degrees centigrade, will be catastrophic. So therefore, our target is 1.5 degrees by 2050, no more than that, to avoid catastrophe vis-a-vis, melting of all the glaciers, rising sea levels, drought over here, massive hurricanes. Everything that we are seeing now would be so intensified. And 2050, you and I will not be there. Our children will be suffering from that. So, but to avoid that, we need to do something to prevent it, to get it only to 1.5 degrees. And the number one solution is to avoid fossil fuel. So is it politically? Because it's politicized because you got one party who is supporting fossil fuel company who are the richest company in the world, right? You got ExxonMobil, you got Texaco, you got Shell, you got BP's, and the oil and gas are the biggest lobbying firm in the world. And so they lobby the government, particularly the Republican Party. I don't want to be political, but it is a fact. So the Republican Party has always subsidized and support, whereby the Democratic Party is concerned about climate change and are not by the oil and gas. So it became a political issue where it should not be. Look at Germany. Whether you're a Green Party or you're in the other party, they all vote to deal with the climate change. Same with Europe. But in the US, it became a political football. So the party who's in power will, and then there are people who are supported party will be anti-climate because that's a propaganda, that's an education. You go to Fox News, they'll say it's a hoax. Nobody believes in this stuff. And you got people watching the other channels say, well, it's serious. So now become a political issue. Mm-hmm. And it's sad because it's a scientific fact that, we can measure the amount of CO2 in the air. We know the impact of it. Just need to stop putting more CO2 into the air. And how do we do it? Number one, we replace all the energy with renewable power, solar, wind, maybe nuclear, or maybe hydro. So all that electron, think about this, electron has to be replaced. So anything that you have electron has to be going to renewable power, which means massive amount of solar, massive amount of wind, massive amount of maybe small nuclear or hydro to replace the grid. But then at the end of the day, the electron, you need a molecule. And you need a green molecule that can replace oil because there are a lot of industries, beyond cars that need heat, right? And what they do, they burn coal, they oil, they burn gas. So you need to replace it with a green molecule. But the only green molecule that you can replace it that has a lot of heat is hydrogen. So therefore, when you think about it, by 2050, 1/3 of the energy that we need to use will have to be clean green hydrogen, and 2/3 would be the electrons from solar and wind. And that's our goal. If we can meet that, then we can get to 1.5 degrees by 2050.
Yeah, I mean,
And it's,
you obviously understand that. Thanks for breaking it down. It's you obviously understand that. I don't have to tell you, but I think the politicians better get on it if they want to see their own grandchildren or great grandchildren, being able to use our planet. I don't want to sound like a pessimist, or I'm not Nostradamus, but I mean, in science we look at trends, and trends don't lie, and certainly facts don't. And
that's right.
I think I don't know what the solution is. I mean, scientifically we obviously know, but as far as implementing, utilizing the science that we have today and putting it into reality, I think that's the problem. And I think, the more powerful people with the opposite agenda are, the harder it will be. So it comes down to really the battle between David and Goliath. And, I don't know who's going to win that battle, but, I sure hope that, people start thinking beyond their own personal agenda in this aspect, because nothing matters if this planet doesn't exist anymore. I personally don't have a biased opinion about this. I'm a scientist by heart, and I look at numbers. I don't belong to any political party. In my family and my friend circles, I have people with both beliefs, Republicans and Democrats. And when I hear them talk and fight about these types of topics, I'm like sitting back. I don't talk about it, because I usually don't talk about stuff that I don't know, simply. And I'm certainly not a headline reader, and I don't regurgitate someone else's opinion. I'm usually quiet. Even when someone asks me, what's your opinion? I'm like, honestly, I don't have the facts. But when I see them really go into battle about this topic, and none of them knows anything, and not mention the fact that they're not even scientists by training, heart, or trade, it just goes to show how this topic has been politicized. And to me, that's really what's preventing, or is going to prevent, the more rapid advancement that we really need. I mean, 2050 years is right around the corner. That's nothing. If you look at humanity, if you look at our planet, 50 years is not even a blip. And so this is incredible to me.
Years, only 30 years, right? We're 22, 23 now.
Correct. You're right. 30 years.
Yeah. So, and that's even shorter amount of time. Yeah. But it's a disrupting business. I mean, there is a massive business with the energy business, and they are controlling. So you got politicians who got short term, and they need pack money.
Yeah.
And they are looking to get re-election. They need lobbying money, and you got the gun issues, and you got the IRA supporting it. You can see all of that political game going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's short view, because they have a short-term limit. I mean, they got term limits, at least some of them have some term limits, so they keep getting re-elected. But again, these are short-term views, and long-term views is critical, because you got young children, and I got young children. We need them, to be able to have an environment they can live in. And the challenge now is the rest of the world. We're like the Africans and the South Asians, and they live in,
which is the majority of the world, by the way.
And they have no energy sources. They barely have access. So the majority of Africa, every country spent half of their GDP to import oil and gas into their country. They every Caribbean island, what they do, half of their GDP is to import diesel to make power. Imagine. I mean, so they live on this thing, and they switching. We barely have enough energy to have now. Give us a chance to use oil and gas so that we can burn more, so we have a better living standard of living. And if you want to do climate change, like a COP27 in Sharm el Sheikh just 2 weeks ago in Egypt, they were saying that we need to put a fund to help these developing countries deal with their climate transitions, because they're the ones suffering more, yet they have no money to transition.
Yeah.
In fact, all their money comes in to buy oil and gas. So who's going to help them? And the developed world is saying, look, we're in the middle of a war right now. I mean, we spend money on war, billions of money on war. I'm not going to give you money for your climate issues.
Yeah,
it's tough, Daria. It's really a big challenge.
Well, Robert, I really commend you. I don't even know the right words to choose. I really commend you for what you're doing and how you sacrifice your career and were willing to take the risk to do this. If for whatever it's worth, it will inspire others to try to accelerate your mission. I think I hope that your name will be written in the history books, and I'm really excited to continue and to follow this, not only your journey, but our planet's journey and your contributions to it. And I really hope the audience is listening very carefully, especially about our discussion about global warming, climate change. That it's not a fad, it's not a politicized. It is a politicized issue. And go read the facts before you vote and elect and have an opinion. And we're such a tribal population. We're so tribal that just looking for confirmation bias just to support our beliefs that support our tribe, whoever that may be. And to me, we're our greatest own enemy, worst enemy. And I think it takes a little bit of an awakening to get off that path. But Robert, thank you so much for just this. This was so educational for me. And I grew up in Germany, as you know, and in a country where one of the first countries in the world that became aware of the fact that we have a problem and we need to do something about it. And so I grew up with that mentality. And when I moved to the States 23 years ago now, I was shocked that my kitchen only had one trash can bin. There was no recycling bin. And in Germany, since I grew up, we had 3 trash can bins, 3 different recycle bins. And so there was a little bit of a confusion. I didn't understand. It's almost like these movies, the guy gets out of prison, has been in prison for 30 years, and then comes out of prison and doesn't know what a phone is. And it's kind of funny. That's how I felt in that regards. Going from one Western country to another Western developed country. And I think this speaks words on how agenda, and obviously America is one of the biggest oil producing countries and has one of the largest petro and oil or gas developing countries in the world. So that's, I get it, it's the agenda, but I think without a planet, we don't get to use the energy or the money or whatever that is. So I think we have to think a little bit long term. But I want to segue. I want to switch it up here. I want to switch it up because I want the audience to get to know you, Robert, as a human. So tell us just briefly, where did you grow up, and who were your role models growing up? Who did you look up to growing up? And what do you think had the greatest impact in your life on the person you are today?
Well, that's a question, but a very interesting story of mine, which is not very interesting for you because I've met a lot of your staff. They are like me, came to the U.S. As the first, immigrant. So I came here in 1975 after the war in Vietnam, and as a little boy, and grew up in the States, right? So again, going through an upheaval of a war-torn country, coming into a new country, and basically became an Americanized kid.
How old were you when you came to the States?
14. So we basically started high school and then college, and my formative years are in the U.S. And I said, come, like you said, highly educated with its graduate degrees and all that, and the U.S. system basically push you into that capacity. I was fortunate to have a pretty good memory when I was young, so I was able to skip a couple grades, and I graduated from school when I was 15, 16 years old, and went straight to college then.
Did anybody in your family instill the importance of education and all of those things? Who were the people that influenced you when you came to the United States or when you lived in Vietnam? Did anybody influence you, or was it all like your own drive? Obviously, you have to be internally driven. Your story is a storybook of an internally driven person. But did anything spark or inspire you to become that person?
Well, I would say that my father was, even since I was a kid, he somehow pushed me through. So he sent me into first grade when I was 4 years old. So he pushed me to go ahead of other kids, and that seems to be instilled in me. And then, unfortunately, he passed away when I was 10 years old. But I guess I had the same drive. And when I came out, I always felt that I need to study more, go faster. And when we went to college, high school was too easy for me. So I went to college. I graduated when I was 19, got my master's degree when I was 20. And they were, the counselor was saying, with your IQ, your talent, I think you should go into medicine, just because of the longest lead time to get in. And that's why, you're almost kind of like being channeled, because you're part of this more elite students to go into the medical field.
Did you enjoy medicine when you studied it and when you later on practiced it, or was it just like a natural track that you fell into, like you said?
It's a natural track, but I enjoyed it, obviously. I mean, as you and I know, it's a huge privilege to study medicine.
It's a calling, and more so than
and then it's so gratifying, and the capacity to be taking care of people, all of that, by itself was a good drive. And it's also, a competitive challenge, right? You're among, smart people who want to do good things. So, you feel almost, I would say, a big achievement to be part of that. But, I think two of the things that I did that also changed a little bit of my perspective is, in the last year of med school, I took time to volunteer as part of the United Nations Health Commission, United HCR, and a Catholic Relief Service, and went to work in Thailand, refugee camp. So that made a big impression on me, working over in the refugee camp and see the public health side of things, and taking care of refugees living in the middle of rice field, working on dirt, clinic, seeing patients with 500 sitting there waiting to see you. speaking no languages. All those made a big impact on me, that there's more to doing something for me, you know. So that was that. And then working with the U.S., then working for the U.S. Navy, then you get to see another perspective of organizations.
How did you get in with the Navy?
Well, I had a scholarship. You know, after I decided to pay for Georgetown Med School, we even at those days it was extremely expensive. So after 1 year of borrowing money to go to med school, I decided to take the offer, to become a U.S. Navy officer.
So do you feel that if you hadn't done that, you would be doing what you're doing today? How much of that has impacted your current path?
I think both of those activities, make me see a bigger perspective than just me doing my private practice. I see the impact of the world. I work, globally. So I see medicine shouldn't be just me, my private practice, and chase and being myself for me and my patients. I want something more, a big impact. And I saw this as an opportunity to make a bigger impact, a bigger legacy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, that's where I feel your humanitarian ambitions stem from. Not only growing up as a child with adversity, losing your father at a very early age. 10 is a tough age, boy. I mean, that's a tough age to lose your father. And I mean, to me, that's why I love speaking to people like you who are so successful and have just an impact, not on just on their surroundings, but just on any human being that they meet, is that they all have come from adversity. They've all had to deal with adversity. They were never handed anything. And I'm just fascinated by how important this is. And we're always so quick to complain and compare ourselves with others that have it or had it so much better than we did. And we call them, he or she was so lucky, that we don't understand that you need adversity, you need failures, you need you can't have it handed in order to succeed. And one of my mantras is that I just posted it on Twitter and Instagram. Said the only reason why I've achieved the success I've achieved is because of all the failures. If I hadn't failed all of those times, I wouldn't be the person I'm today. So my question to you, what is your or has been your biggest failure in your life? And then maybe you can tell us what you learned from that.
Well, I think that the biggest failure, and this is an issue that you probably your entrepreneurial audience may have to see it, is that to go out and pitch your idea, you don't know how many times that you are the door is shut, right, to you, because people don't believe in what you say, and so there's a lot more no than yes. There is a lot of time you do have to struggle financially to keep moving. You persevere. So all of these, as you said, failure means you just have to keep trying. And if you give up, it's easy to give up, right? And if you do believe in what you want to do, then you need to keep trying. And so raising funding, dealing with, Wall Street investors are hard. And I've even gone through stages where I had venture investors who attempt to steal my technology in my company.
Happens a lot.
To then go through a big lawsuit to stop it, and it was ugly. It was draining. When you deal with a billionaire in New York who think that I have enough money just to take over this guy and kick him out and take his technology. And I didn't let it happen. I fought it, and came out and got my technology and my brand and my business back. That was draining. That was draining. So it's not all rosy.
So what's the biggest lesson that you could share with our audience from your failures?
Perseverance. I think if you believe in what you're doing, trying, and you cannot just give up. I think that's my number one. I guess people said that I had is the perseverance, that I don't want to give up because I believe in it.
Well, I think I couldn't agree with you more. We're too quick to give up, especially when the going gets tough. And I think what balances that is how much conviction you have and how much you believe in yourself. And I think that is what makes the difference, whether you pull through with perseverance or whether you just say, yeah, this is getting too tough, I'm out. This is not what I signed up for. And I think that's really what makes the difference. I don't know if you're watching the World Cup. I mean, we have seen so many teams beating so many former world champions like Germany and Spain that were beaten by South Korea, Japan, even Portugal was beaten. And in all those games, all those teams came from behind because they believed that they can win as a team. And that belief is what pulled them through. I love sports because I think we can take a lot of analogies that we can apply to our lives and the decisions we make. And with all those teams, is the one thing that was a difference maker was perseverance. And they didn't give up until the referee blew the last whistle. And so that's why I love watching sports. It's just inspiring. And that was the story personally of my life, which I shared in a different podcast. I love that. Now, if you could give your, we're about to close up here. If we went way over time, but this conversation was way too interesting and important for me to keep it at my regular time, which is about an hour 15 minutes. But if you could give your self when you were a child or a teenager, knowing what you know today, advice, if you could give your own self one advice to your own maybe 18-year-old self, one advice, knowing what you know today, having gone through what you have gone through, what would that be?
I think that my advice would be, not only do you, like I said earlier, persevere, but probably to be less trusting. I'm known to be too generous and too trusting, and I need to be more careful of who I trust. May not be something that most people think about, because you, as doctors and MDs, you do no harm and you give your patient complete trust. But the business world is not the same, and you learn that pretty rapidly, that it's a shark, dog eat dog world.
Yes.
And if you have something, people want it.
That's a good one.
So you have to keep your eyes open. Not that you are considering everybody, you can't trust them, but you make sure that you verify and choose your friend very carefully, and choose you partner with carefully, because you need a team to succeed. You cannot do anything alone, and you have to choose the right people to work with. So to make a good team, and that's what you need. You need a team to work with you. So that would be my advice. So be less trusting.
That's great advice, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Our brains are wired to be generous. It's within our DNA to be generous, empathetic. And
Absolutely.
you
It's
know,
not, yeah,
you know, in the dog eat dog world in business, it's not like that. So that's great advice.
no.
I'm glad I asked that question because I think a lot of people are. That doesn't mean to be a shark, just to be a bad person, just to be more aware and not to be naive.
That's right.
I think at the end of the day, I believe in karma. I think generosity goes a long way, but don't shoot yourself in your own foot by doing so. I think that's great advice. Last question, Robert.
Mhm.
This, by the way, was one of the most inspiring conversations I had with anyone. So thank you. So last question. What is the one question I should have asked you that I didn't?
This is more of a joke.
Okay.
You should ask me, because if you ask me about, you know, a little bit more my personality. What is my favorite sport? What do I?
Okay. What is your favorite sport?
I am a polo player.
Wow.
I play polo, string of pony horses. I've been a polo player for almost 25 years.
Wow.
And it is one of considered the second most dangerous sport.
Interesting. What's the first most dangerous?
Car racing.
Oh, okay. Well,
and that because of the speed, right? And it's not about morbidity, it's about mortality. You can really get yourself hurt or even die. So,
interesting.
And yet it's the most inspiring sport, you know, that you can play. You have your speed, you have your teamwork, you have your relationship with an animal, part of nature, and
yeah, I mean, I'm very familiar with the sport because being Persian, you know, the history of polo goes back to
exactly. It came all the way from Persia.
Yes.
You know, back over to Mongolia.
Not many know that. Yes.
So yeah, so and that means that polo players are interesting because we are risk taker.
Mm-hmm. I can tell.
And because you follow a passion, willing to take that risk, and that is what you see in polo players. And when you look at all the people who went into polo, they all have that passion for it, but willing to take that risk. And people who are risk averse will never be a polo player. Well, so that basically the personality of the person that you talk to. In my case,
I will have to come and watch one of your polo games. Then I would love I would love that. I love watching polo. I never played polo. But I would love to watch that. And so what I have to tell you though is, Robert, we need you. The world needs you. So please be careful out there when you play polo and ride on a horse, and don't go too crazy. Okay, you have bigger responsibilities, and so I'm rooting for you, and thank you so much. It was very generous of you. It was very generous of you to. I remember when I asked you, you didn't hesitate 2 seconds. You said, "Yep, just let me know when." And I didn't expect that. So thank you so much. This is the mission of my podcast: is just sharing stories of people like yourself.
Well, I think that, like you said from the beginning, there's not enough information out there. You have a great amount of audience and people follow you. And I think that there's this very important topic. There's not enough information out there for people to hear about it, understand it. I mean, I can guarantee you probably 99% of the people you would meet, not the audience now, since they heard this, you ask them about hydrogen and they would look at you like, oh, what are you talking about?
Yeah, because they don't, it's people, if they don't hear something in the news, it's like it doesn't exist to them. Is if the media doesn't talk about it, it's some sort of fad. It's like they go by, and that's the same in medicine. It's like, well, if it's so great, how come I haven't heard about it? It's like, well, because you get your information from the news, you know. There is a website. It's called Google.com. Why don't you go on there and punch the term in there and just learn something? You know, back in the days we had to go to the library. Now the information is online. It's at your disposal. You just have to go pick it. But people don't make that effort because, you know, human nature, we're lazy, right? And so We just love having opinions about everything, especially about stuff that we don't know anything about. And I think it is what it is, and it is, as bad as it may sound, it's Darwinism, and so it takes a good human being to be powerful to change the world. And you can give the same power to a good person or a bad person, the result is completely different. And so
we're both lucky that we went through, the massive amount of education that we had to go through. And so we understand facts, we understand that you need to learn it, you need to read it, you need to study it. And we did it for many, many years. And that's something that we were lucky to be part of. And a lot of people depend on the news, information, facts, a Twitter here and a post there. It's unfortunate. And I hope that our children will be able to differentiate between what's real facts and what's, who knows.
Robert, I've said it on my podcast every time almost. I'm an optimist by heart. I believe in the fact that human beings were way too smart. And it doesn't take many smart people to make sure that we don't become the reason for our own demise. And you just have to look back at history, and history is our best teacher. And in toughest times, I think there was always amazing people that came and stepped up to the plate, that made sure, not just by taking the first step, but by inspiring even the non-believers. So for that reason, I'm an optimist. And so I'm not one of those that paints doomsday, and I don't believe in that. And so with that, I just want to tell my audience, don't worry. We became aware of a lot of issues that we have, but as long as we have the Robert Does and others, I think we're in a good place. And thank you so much, Robert. It was a very inspiring story. Your story is inspiring. And I'm going to have my kids watch this, because I think they are the next generation. And just like they can become inspired by watching Messi score a goal, they can watch you or listen to your story. And I think inspiration doesn't have any limits. It comes in all shapes and forms. So thank you for giving us what you have, and God bless you.
Thanks for the opportunity. I love the conversation, so we should do it more.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, episode's over. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with the one and only Dr. Robert Doe. And if you're listening on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and you enjoyed this podcast, please don't forget to leave me a review so others have the chance to discover my podcast, as well as if you listen on Spotify, you can leave comments and questions down below. And until next time, goodbye.